In this problem, I need to solve this equation over here. And what type of equation is it? Well, it's a rational equation. If you don't remember that, just think of it's an equation with fractions in, and I have my variables in the denominator. So the first step in solving these equations is I need to get rid of the denominators by multiplying every single term in my equation by the least common denominator. So the first thing we need to do is find the least common denominator. And the way to do that is you go to the first denominator. I definitely need an x in my LCD. Go to the next denominator. I need an x minus 3. I don't have one, so I have to multiply my x times x minus 3. Go to look at the last one. Do I already have an x minus 3 there? Yes. So my LCD is the quantity x times x minus 3. And before we're finished with this, we need to think about our restrictions. Remember, we can never divide by 0. So we take our LCD and we set every term in there equal to 0. So x equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0, so x equals 3. These are my two restrictions. By that, I mean if I land up with either of those answers, they are not allowed. Because take the first one, x equals 0. If x was 0, I'd have 7 divided by 0, which is undefined. So what we do with our restrictions is at the very end of the solving process, we check to make sure our solutions are neither of these two numbers. So now we're ready to multiply the LCD by every single term in our equation. So I'm going to have x times x minus 3, and to help me out, I'm going to divide it by 1, multiplied by 7 over x, plus x over x minus 3, times my LCD again, x times x minus 3 over 1, equals 3 over x minus 3. Don't forget I need to multiply that term also by my LCD. So now I've multiplied each term up here. Remember there's 1, 2, 3 terms by my LCD. So now we need to look at each term and decide what reduces out. Well, in the first term, x reduces with this x, and it's going to leave me with x minus 3 times 7, which we prefer to write as 7 times x minus 3. Plus the second term, the x minus 3's reduce, and what do I get left with? X times x, which is x squared, equals, last term, x minus 3 reduces, and I get left with 3x. So now I've taken my rational equation and I have a quadratic equation because I have degree 2. So we need to clean it up. So I'm going to have to distribute in the 7. I get 7x minus 21 plus x squared equals 3x. I need to get 0 on one side because we want to factor this problem. So I'm going to subtract 3x from both sides. That will give me my 0 on the left-hand side. So 7x minus 3x is 4x minus 21 plus x squared equals 0. So I've got my 0 on the right-hand side, but if you look at the left, everything's jumbled up. To be able to factor it, I need everything in descending order. So I'm going to write my x squared term first, my x term next, and then finally my constant term. So now it is ready to be factored because I have it in standard form. So now I'm ready to factor it. A is the coefficient of the x squared is 1, so this is going to be one of the quicker ones to factor. B is the coefficient of the x is 4, and C is the constant term, negative 21. So I'm going to multiply A times C, which is 1 times negative 21. Two numbers that multiply to negative 21 and add to B, which is 4. So hopefully these numbers will come to you quickly, but I'm going to quickly do the table, so I'm going to put it on pause. Two numbers that multiply to a negative and add to a positive. That means the numbers have to be opposite in sign, and the bigger one has to be the positive. And here are the numbers that work. Negative 3 times 7 is negative 21. Negative 3 plus 7 is positive 4. And since A was equal to 1, I don't have to factor it by grouping. Those two numbers that I have are my factors. So I have x minus 3 times x plus 7. So it's factored. I have 0 on the right-hand side. Next step, set each factor equal to 0. And let's solve each of those. So I get x equals 3 and subtract 7 from both sides. X equals negative 7. Can I stop at this point? No. Remember, this started as a rational equation, so I have to look at my restrictions. X equals 3 is not allowed, so that is not a good solution. Because if I put it into my original equation, it would make at least one of the denominators equal to 0. So what is my answer? There's only one answer to this problem, and it's x equals negative 7.